Analyst of the Year.
And guys, with Analyst of the Year, there might be one surprise entrant on this list. And I have to, talk about this with full disclosure. And John Franklin, you could kind of help out here. We're talking about color commentators. We're not talking about play-by-play. So John Anik, not on this list. That is, however, why you'll find Daniel Cormier, Paul Felder, Dan Hardy, Michael Bisping, and Israel Adesanya. And it gets a little tricky. We put this one out there in the YouTube community tab. We did say, who is your MMA Analyst of the Year? And we had another name who is an honorable mention from one championship, Mitch Chilson. 1,900 total votes, guys. 1% went with Mitch Chilson. There were a couple of different names that were thrown out there. 119 total comments from the Fight Night Picks crew. I really have to give an honorable mention to Magnus Jaiken Senblad, Swedish commentary. That's awesome, and I'm in agreement, but I don't speak Swedish. I know phonetically it's close to English, but I don't speak Swedish, so I can't comment on that. But Bisping, Adesanya, Hardy, Felder, Cormier, John Franklin, you're a baseball guy, right?
I am.
We always love the play-by-play, but it's those creepy, weird color commentators that can really add an extra element with baseball. But with MMA, totally different sport, and we get an added layer of depth. What's your take on this Analyst of the Year category for 2020?
Well, I'll take it into another sport. I've been watching, the basketball season started. I was watching some highlights of the Bulls game, and it seemed like every time a Bulls player hit a jumper, their color commentator was like, Sriracha, and he was saying all this crazy stuff. I don't know who it is. He's a fun guy. Here's where I think Analyst gets interesting, because what you have to do is you have to give the fans the knowledge, but you have to be quirky too. They have to like you, right? And I guess the person that does that most effectively would be Daniel Cormier, meaning he's in the moment. He does the thug rose, but then he also knows immediately what's going to happen as it's happening. Dominic Cruz, so if he's dead center, right? Dominic Cruz may be a little bit too technical. Paul Felder might be a little bit too fun, right? So or Joe Rogan might be a little too fun. Cruz is a little too technical. So I think that's what it really boils down to. And everybody has their own favorite combination. Matt and I talk about this. You and I talk about this, Craig, about at the end of the night, what do you think of these guys? We think of Fitzgerald, Bisping, and whoever. So for me, yeah, it was an interesting year to see these guys develop. I really like, if we were going to have maybe most improved, it's Paul Felder. Bisping, although Bisping is coming along as well. So I think this is a good 5. And obviously the guy who makes it all interesting is Israel Adesanya, because the one time we've seen him do color commentary was the Tyson Jones fight, which isn't MMA, which makes us hipsters. But, I liked what he did. I thought it was interesting what he did. So what do you guys think? For me, this is an interesting group.
Matt, before I let you go, so 1,900 total votes, YouTube community section, 31% Cormier, 38% Felder, 19% Dan Hardy. Other explain below get 11%. Bisping's in there. There's a lot of different names. Now, Bisping, to me, again, we talk most improved. Bisping definitely has to be up there. He's continued to make gains. Daniel Cormier is probably right up there based on the fact that fighters took corner advice from an analyst, used it in their fights, and won. It's a tricky one for me. What are your thoughts on this one?
So how John had mentioned, I don't know what the color name guy for the Chicago Bulls is. I know what it is for the Raptors, and that man's name's Matt Devlin, and he likes to yell out random Canadian cities when Toronto Raptors hit 3-pointers.
That's the play-by-play guy. They're color commentators, Jack Armstrong.
No. But I'm proving this point. Matt Devlin will yell out different cities from Canada when the Raptors hit a 3-pointer. I'll never forget where I was when Kawhi Leonard hit the first 3-pointer of Game 7 against Golden State. He yelled from Fredericton. And just that little added tidbit that he added to the broadcast is something that I'm never going to forget about those NBA finals. Each and every one of these guys in this category, I think, does have one of those things. Like Daniel Cormier has that unnatural excitement that no one else on that list can really match. Whereas Paul Felder offers a little bit of both. He can give you that Dominic Cruz-esque kind of, this is how you check leg kicks. These are underhooks and whatnot. But he can still be kind of fun. With Israel Adesanya, like we had mentioned, we only had the one little taste of him, but what we got from that Jones Jr. Mike Tyson fight was really positive. And I kind of like where Israel Adesanya is trending outside of just the MMA atmosphere. He's a guy who can reach out and become more of a mainstream star going forward. I do think that sort of commentary gig that he did for the boxing match, if you will, is going to get him a lot more exposure even within the UFC. And I can see him getting more opportunities like this within the UFC as his career progresses, just because of that one opportunity that he had.
Boys, oh boys, this is a tricky one. Again, Paul Felder. Maybe that one's swayed by the fact that he cornered Jared Gordon and then he fought RDA, and he's also a commentator. Bisping, Hall of Famer. Dan Hardy continues to make strides and point at Herb Dean. That's an all-time classic. So many deserving commentators and analysts that deserve to be in this category. But guys, I think we got to go with the hipster pick. Israel Adesanya put MMA on the map again at an event that was headlined by Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. And you look at the panel that they had, and I don't care how short notice it was. Mauro Ranallo, Pride, boxing, what have you, pro wrestling, is one of the GOATs. To me, he is. He really is. And again, I'm a Canadian, so there's a little bit of bias there. Sugar Ray Leonard, an all-time great. You look at Snoop Dogg.
An all-time great.
Not a big Snoop Dogg guy, but an all-time great. To me, Israel Adesanya star shone the brightest that night. Out of all of those people, go ahead, John Franklin.
This is a very important point to make. I don't know that if you put the other guys in this category in Israel Adesanya's spot that night, if they would have done as well. And if you factor in that this was the first time he ever did it, the first time he ever did play-by-play was a shit show. And he did it seamlessly. He's a guy with an accent who was super clear the whole night, right? Which not everybody's able to do. You put Cormier in that spot, maybe he could pull it off. But Felder, Hardy, Bisping, I think they would all just be reacting to the circumstances. And they would all just be like, like Sugar Ray Leonard giving you the dead fish comments. And it just was it was all over the place. And I think Adesanya knew enough about what was going on to there's no way, and I could be wrong, there's no way he scouted all those fighters ahead of time. I don't think. And yet he still knew what he was looking at. He still knew enough about what was going on to comment on all of the fights. I just think that people don't understand the degree of difficulty. If he can do that in that show, imagine what he could do in a UFC show where everything's laid out, they're structured, the director's done 100 of these. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that to me was the most impressive debut that you could possibly have. And the other, again, I'm belaboring the point, but here it is. Put those guys in Adesanya's shoes, they crash and burn. Put him in their shoes, he still does great.
It was absolutely amazing. And again, it might be a zag when we were supposed to zig, but Israel Adesanya, Analyst of the Year, one event, it wasn't in MMA, but MMA shone the brightest out of that night, and Nate Robinson definitely didn't. So the award for Analyst of the Year for 2020 is going to City Kickboxing's Israel Adesanya, your middleweight champion. And guys, we have a couple of great awards left. We're talking Round of the Year. We're talking Fight of the Year. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's have a look at Round of the Year.